Welcome to Unbounded Jagtalk podcast. This is me, Jagti. Today we are gonna start a new book, which name is 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. Change Your Life Forever by Steve Chandler. Let's talk about author. The author is Steve Chandler, graduated from the University of Arizona with a degree in creative writing and political science, and he spent 4 years in the military studying language and psychological warfare. He credits his own life experience with failure as the most valuable tools for helping others. Steve's audience are inspired by stories of his low points. It gives them hope because they realize that they are not nearly as bad off as he was. They figure it Steve can transform his life, so can they. When this book was first written in 1995, the entire world was not yet living in cyberspace. The internet was a relatively new idea, and very few of us knew how big a part of our lives it would become. As the new millennium dawned, a strange thing began to happen. People everywhere were writing again, just as people did in the 1800s when they took their quills out to write letters and diaries. The age of mind numbing television viewing had been eclipsed by the age of chat rooms and emails. This wonderful evolutionary jump in civilizations gave this little book that you are holding in your hands right now brand new life. All of a sudden, the fight for limited shelf space in bookstores was not as important to a book's success. What became most important was the book's word of mouth buzz over the internet. Soon, people were emailing other people about this book, and the internet bookstore was selling copies as fast as Carrier Press could print them. I began getting emails from readers as far away as Taiwan and Japan and as close as my computer screen. The author says, when we leave this world, we will ask ourselves one question: what's different? What's different because I was here? And the answer to the question will be the difference that we made. All of our thoughts and feelings wouldn't matter anymore when we are on our deathbeds asking that question. Yet we continue to obsess about our thoughts and become fascinated with our feelings. We are offended by other people. We want to prove we are right. We make other people wrong. We are disappointed in some people and resent others. It goes on, and none of it will matter on that deathbed. Action will be all that matters. We could have made a difference every hour, every day if we had wanted to. So, how do we do that? How do we motivate ourselves to get into actions? How do we live a life of action and difference making? Aristotle knew the answer. In the original preface to the original edition of this book, Aristotle gave the answer. The answer lies in motion. The answer lies in moment. So, what follows is the original snow angle preface to the original edition of the book. It's rededicated to everyone who has written to me about it. When I was a child growing up in Michigan, we used to make angels in the snow. We would find a fresh, untouched patch of snow and lie on our backs in it. Then, flapping our arms, we would leave the impression of wings in the snow. We would then get up and admire our work. The two moments, lying down and flapping our arms, created the angel. This memory of Michigan in the winter has come back to me a lot in recent weeks. It first happened when someone asked me what the reconnection was between self motivation and self creation. While answering the question, I got a picture of snow and I had a vision that the whole universe was snow and I could create myself any way I wanted by my moment. The moment of the actions I took would create the self I wanted to be. Aristotle also knew how to create a self through movement. He once said this: whatever we learn to do, we learn by actually doing it. Men come to be builders, for instance, by building, and harp players by playing the harp. In the same way, by doing just acts, we come to be just. By doing self controlled acts, we come to be self controlled, and by doing brave acts, we become brave. This book contains 100 moves you can make in the snow. Let's read introduction of this book. That each of us has a fixed personality is a myth. It is self limiting and it denies us our power of continuous creation. In our ongoing creation of who we are, nothing has a greater impact on that process than the choice we make between optimism and pessimism. There are no optimistic or pessimistic personalities, there are only single individual choices for optimistic or pessimistic thoughts. Charlie Chaplin once entered a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest in Monte Carlo, and the judges awarded him third place. Personality is overrated. Who we are is up to us every moment. The choices we make for our thinking either motivate us or they do not. And although clear visualization of a goal is a good first step, a joyfully motivated life demands more. To live the life you want to live, action is required. As Shakespeare said, action is eloquence. And as psychologist and author Dr. Nathaniel Brandon has written, a goal without an action plan is a daydream. Motivation creates a self. In my experience, as a teacher, consultant, and a writer, I have accumulated 100 ways of thinking that lead directly to the motivation. In my work as a corporate trainer and public seminar leader, I have often read and researched many volumes of a psychologist or philosopher of his work to find a single sentence that my seminar students can use. What I am always looking for are ways of thinking that energize the mind and get us going again. So, this is a book of ideas. My solo creation in assembling these ideas was how useful are they? I have drawn on the feedback I have gotten from my corporate and public seminar students to know which ideas make lasting impression on people and which don't. The ones that do are in this book. Since its first printing in 1996, this little book has enjoyed a success I never imagined. During its first 5 years of sales, we have seen the emergence of the internet as the world's primary source of information. People have not only been buying this book on the net, but they have been posting their reviews. We are one of them. Yes, we are gonna read this beautiful book for you, my reviewers. Chapter 1. First way, get on your deathbed. A number of years ago, when I was working with physiotherapist Devers Brandon, she put me through her deathbed exercise. I was asked to clearly imagine myself lying on my own deathbed and to fully realize the feelings connected with dying and saying goodbye. Then she asked me to mentally invite the people in my life who were important to me to visit my bedside, one at a time. As I visualized each friend and relative coming in to visit me, I had to speak to them out loud. I had to say to them what I wanted them to know as I was dying as I spoke to each person. I could feel my voice breaking. Somehow I couldn't help breaking down. My eyes were filled with tears. I experienced such a sense of loss. It was not my own life I was mourning, it was a love I was losing. To be more exact, it was a communication of love that had never been there. During this difficult exercise, I really got to see how much I would left out of my life. How many wonderful feelings I had about my children, for example, that I would never explicitly expressed. At the end of the exercise, I was an emotional mess. I had rarely cried that hard in my life. But when those emotions cleared, a wonderful thing happened. I was clear. I knew what was really important and who really mattered to me. I understand for the first time what George Patton meant when he said, "Death can be more exciting than life." From that day on, I vowed not to leave anything to chance. I made up my mind never to leave anything unsaid. I wanted to live as if I might die on moment. To entire experience altered the way I have related to people ever since. And the great point of the exercise was not lost on me. Don't have to wait until we are actually near death to receive these benefits of being mortal. We can create the experience anytime we want. A few years later, when my mother lay dying in a hospital in a Tucson, I rushed to her side to hold her hand and repeat to her all the love and gratitude I felt for who she had been for me. When she finally died, my grieving was very intense but very short. In a matter of days, I felt that everything great about my mother had entered into me and would live there as a loving spirit forever. A year and a half before my father's death, I began to send him letters and poems about his contribution to my life. He lived his last moment and died in the grip of chronic illness, so communicating and getting through to him in person was not always easy. But I always felt good that he had those letters and poems to read. Once he called me after I had sent him a Father's Day poem, and he said, "Hey, I guess I was not such a bad father after all." Poet William Blake warned us about keeping our thoughts locked up until we die. When thought is closed in caves, he wrote, then love will show its roots in deepest hell. Pretending you are not going to die is detrimental to your enjoyment of life. It is detrimental in the same way that it would be detrimental for a basketball player to pretend there was no end to the game he was playing. That player would reduce his intensity, adopt a lazy playing style, and, of course, end up not having any fun at all. Without an end, there is a no game. Without being conscious of death, you can't be fully aware of the gift of life. Yet, many of us, including myself, keep pretending that our life's game will have no end. We keep planning to great things someday when we feel like it. We assign our goals and dreams to that imaginary island in the sea that Dennis Waitley calls Someday I'll. We find ourselves saying, "Someday I'll do this and someday I will do that." Confronting our own death doesn't have to wait until we run out of life. In fact, being able to vividly imagine our last hours on our deathboard creates a paradoxical sensation. The feeling of being born all over again, the first step to fearless self motivation. People living deeply, wrote poet and diarist Aniston, have no fear of death. And as Bob Dylan has sung, he who is not busy being born is busy dying. Second chapter, Stay Hungry. Arnold was not famous yet in 1976 when he and I had lunch together at the Double Eater in Tucson. Arizona. Not one person in the restaurant recognized him. He was in town publicizing the movie Stay Hungry, a box office disappointment he had just made with Jeff and Sally. I was a sports columnist for the Tucson Citizen at the time, and my assignment was to spend a full day, one on one, with Arnold and write a feature story about him for our newspaper's Sunday magazine. I too had no idea who he was or he was going to become. I agreed to spend the day with him because I had to. It was an assignment, and although I took it with an uninspired attitude, it was one I would never forget. Perhaps the most memorable part of the day with Scroogeburger Arnold occurred when we took an hour for lunch. I had my reporter's notebook out and was asking questions for the story while we ate. At one point, I casually asked him, "Now that you have retired from bodybuilding, what are you going to do next?" And with a voice as calm as if he were telling me about some mundane travel plans, he said, "I'm going to be the number one box office star in all of Hollywood." Mind you, this is what not the slim Arabic Arnold we knew today. This man was pumped up and huge. This man was pumped up and huge. And so, for my own physical sense of well being, I tried to appear to find his goal reasonable. I tried not to show my shock and amusement at this plan. After all, his first attempt at movies didn't promise much, and his Austrian accent and awkward monsters bull didn't suggest instant acceptance by movie audience. I finally managed to match his calm demeanor, and I asked him just how he planned to become Hollywood's top star. "It's the same process I used in bodybuilding," he explained. "What you do is create a vision of who you want to be, and then live into that picture as if it were already true." It sounded ridiculously simple, too simple as to mean anything. But I write, but I wrote it down, and I never forget it. I will never forget the moment when some entertainment TV show was saying that box office receipts from his second Terminator movie had made him the most popular box office draw in the world. Was he psychic, or was there something to his formula? Over the years, I have used Arnold's idea of creating a vision as a motivational tool. I have also elaborated on it in my corporate training seminars. I invite people to notice that Arnold said that you create a vision. He did not say that you wait until you receive a vision. You create one. In other words, you make it up. A major part of living a life of self motivation is having something to wake up for in this morning, something that you are up to in life so that you will stay hungry. The vision can be created right now, better now than later. You can always change it if you want, but don't live a moment longer without one. Watch what being hungry to live that vision does to your ability to motivate yourself. Third way, tell yourself a true lie. I remember when my then 12-year daughter Margaret participated in a school poetry reading in which all her classmates had to write a lie poem about how great they were. They were supposed to make up untruths about themselves that made them sound unbelievably wonderful. I realized as I listened to the poems that the children were doing an unintended version of what Arnold did to clarify the picture of his future. By lying to themselves, they were creating a vision of who they wanted to be. It's not worthy to public schools are so out of touch with the motivational source of individual achievement and personal success that in order to invite children to express big vision for themselves, they have to invite the children to lie. Most of us are unable to see the truth of who we could be. My daughter's school developed an unintended solution to the difficulty. If it's hard for you to imagine the potential in yourself, then you might want to begin by expressing it as a fantasy, as did the children who wrote the poems. Think up some stories about who you would like to be. Your subconscious mind doesn't know you are fantasizing. Soon you will begin to create the necessary blueprint for stretching your accomplishment without a picture of your highest self. You can't live into the self. Fake it till you make it. The lie will become the truth. Fourth way, keep your eyes on the prize. In his four-way, the author says most of us never really focus. We constantly feel a kind of irritating psychic chaos because we keep trying to think of too many things at once. There is always too much up there on the screen. There was an interesting motivational talk on this subject given by former Dallas Cowboys coach Jimmy Johnson to his football player before the 1993 Super Bowl. I told them that if I light a 2 4x4 across the room, everybody there would walk across it and not fall because our focus would be that we were going to walk that 2 by 4. But if I put that same 2 by 4 10 stories high between two buildings, only a few would make it because the focus would be on falling because it's everything. The team that is more focused today is the team that will win this game. Johnson told his team not to be distracted by the crowd, the media, or the possibility of losing, but to focus on each play of the game itself just as if it were a good practice session. The Cowboys won the game 52 to 17. There is a point to that story that goes way beyond football. Most of us tend to lose our focus in life because we are perpetually worried about so many negative possibilities. Rather than focusing on the 2 by 4, we worry about all the ramifications of falling. Rather than focusing on our goals, we are distracted by our worries and fears. But when you focus on what you want, it will come into your life. When you focus on being a happy and motivated person, that is who you will be. In fifth way, author says, learn to sweat in peace. The harder you are on yourself, the easier life is on you. Or, as they say in the Navy SEALs, the more you sweat in peacetime, the less you bleed in war. My childhood friend Red Nichols was the first to show me this principle in action. When we were playing Little League, we were always troubled by how fast the pitchers throw the ball. We were in an especially good league, and the overgrown opposing pitchers, whose birth certificates we were always demanding to see, fired the ball into us at alarming speeds during the games. We began reading going up to the plate to hit. It wasn't fun. Batting had become something we just tried to get through without embarrassing ourselves too much. Then Rhett got an idea. What if the pitches we faced in games were slower than the ones we face every day in practice? Rhett asked. That's just the problem, I said. We don't know about anybody who can pitch that fast to us. That's why in the game it's so hard. The ball looks like an aspirin pill coming in at 200 miles an hour. I know we don't know anyone who can throw a boss ball that fast, said Red. But what if it was not baseball? I don't know what you mean, I said. Just then, Red pulled from his pocket a little plastic golf ball with holes in it, the kind our dads used to hit in the backyard for golf practice. Get a bat, Red said. I picked up a baseball bat and we walked out to the park near Red's house. Red went to the pitcher's mound but came in about 3 feet closer than usual. As I stood at the plate, he fired the little golf ball past me as I tried to swing at it. Ha ha, Red shouted. That's faster than anybody you will face in Little League. Let's get going. We then took turns pitching to each other with his bizarre little ball homering in at incredible speeds. The little plastic ball was not only hilariously fast, but it curved with and dropped more sharply than any little leaguer speech could do. By the time Rit and I played our next league game, we were ready. The pitches looked like they were coming in slow motion, big white balloons. I hit the first and only home run I ever hit, even after one of the red session. It was of a left-hander whose pitch seemed to hang in the air forever before I creamed it. The lesson Red taught me was one I have never forgotten. Whenever I'm afraid of something coming up, I will find a way to do something that's even harder or scarier. Once I do the harder thing, the real thing becomes fun. The great boxer Muhammad Ali used to use this principle in choosing his sparring partners. He would make sure that the sparring partners he worked with before a fight were better than the boxer he was going up against in the real fight. They might not always be better all around, but he found sparring partners who were each better in one certain way or another than his upcoming opponent. After facing them, he knew going into each fight that he had already fought those skills and won. You can always stage a bigger battle than the one you have to face. If you have to make a presentation in front of someone who scares you, you can always rehearse it first in front of someone who scares you more. If you have got something hard to do and you are hesitate to do it, pick out something even harder and do that first. Watch what it does to your motivation going into the real challenge. So that is for today, guys. In next episode, we are gonna complete our next phase. If you like this audiobook, please like, comment, and share. Till then, take care.